everyone. Welcome to another episode of Life Stories Unscripted podcast. I'm your host, Viviane, and I'm a doula, breastfeeding specialist, and a mama coach. And I talk about everything related to preconception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and everything in between. So if you're a parent or you're trying to be one, this is the podcast for you, so stay tuned. Today I'm talking to John Kenny from Great Britain. John is an award-winning relationship coach, and you guessed it, we're going to talk about relationships, more precisely 6 ways to a healthy relationships. If you like this show and you've seen some of my previous episodes, please hit the subscribe button now so me and you can share the word on healthy relationships together. This show is sponsored by Perfecta Placenta, located in Beverly Hills, which is a placenta preserving company. So if you would like your miracle organ to be preserved and get a stretch mark cream and a diaper bag from me as a gift, don't forget to use my promo code DoulaViviane. And for more information on how it works, please let me know either via Facebook or Instagram, where I can be found under my name, Doula Viviane, or hit me up on Gmail, which is birthforviviane@gmail.com. With all the formalities out of the way, let's talk to John. Hi, John. Thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome, Viviane. Lovely to see you.
You too. I'm very excited to tap into the topic that we discussed prior. So, but before that, if you would be so kind and introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and what led you to become a relationship coach or a therapist.
Yeah, thank you. So my background's in therapy. So I trained as a therapist. I started my training back in 2004 and I qualified in 2008. So I was counseling people for several years. And then I had some coaching of my own, and my coach at the time helped me to realize that I was kind of telling myself the same story over and over again, which led to the same kind of outcomes and results I was getting in my life, particularly around relationships. My relationships have always been a bit messy, to put it mildly. So I really kind of bought into the idea of coaching. So the counseling I thought was really good to help me to understand where I came from, but I wasn't able to change where I was going because of the therapy. And then coaching was able to kind of hold me accountable a little bit more for my own behavior, my own actions, my own thoughts, etc. And so I started to shift away from the stuff I was doing. So I decided to train as a coach at that point and add that to kind of my skills as far as the therapy and the coaching is concerned, molded them together. And then in 2016, I focused just really on the coaching. But my coaching is a fusion of counseling and coaching. So I help people to kind of understand their past stuff. So how relationships from their past are affecting their kind of present, why they're choosing the types of people that they come across in their lives to have relationships with, why they've maybe had unsuccessful relationships, never found the right kind of person to be with, if they've got difficult family relationships, work relationships. And because I kind of believe that shifting my area, how I was doing relationships, made such a hugely significant difference to my overall level of happiness and fulfillment, that I decided to then niche into that area because it seemed to make the most difference. And I think relationships, everybody has relationships and there can always be issues. And because they are so emotive, they also have a huge impact on how we live our lives on a day-to-day basis. So they'll bleed out into lots of areas. So they can affect our careers, they can affect everything that we kind of put our minds to, and have a real big impact on whether we're able to function in a healthy space. And so that's why I decided to really focus on relationships and help people to create the best ones possible, so they can live the happiest and most fulfilled life possible.
And you've been very successful. You just won the award for the Relationship Coach of the Year. Is that right?
I did, yes, thank you. Yeah, nice. Yes, so at the end of last year, I've had a kind of couple of regional awards, but this was kind of the National Relationship Coach of the Year, so I was super proud of that.
Yeah, and you have every right to be. I mean, you clearly are making a huge impact in our everyday lives. And like you said, relationships are everywhere, whether it's romantic, whether it's with our children or a business relationship, we have to be solid in it, or there's going to be stuff that's coming up for us.
Yeah, most definitely.
So yeah, I'm very excited to dive into the 6 ways into a healthy relationship. So thank you for your introduction. And if you're ready, I'm ready to soak it in.
Okay, so I have a program which I use when I work with some of my clients. So they can either do this online by themselves or they can do it running alongside some coaching sessions. And it's the 6 things that we need to understand in order to sort of create or attract healthy relationships towards us in our lives. And one of the first thing we look at is the attraction style. So when we sort of grow up, as we go through life, we form from the early relationships an understanding of how relationships are supposed to be. So as you interacted with your caregivers as a child, you would have been given signals of how important you are to them, and behaved in ways that made you decide how you were going to gain affection from them. So they may have given you love, the affection, you'd had good connection and comfort, and made you feel safe and secure, but they could also have created an environment where you didn't get your needs met, and so that you adapted in order to make this type of thing happen. So as you learn how to do those certain things in order to get the affection that you wanted, you would then decide how that would kind of dictate then how you learned to attract certain people towards you. So did you learn perhaps that to feel safe emotionally, okay, use the word safe loosely there because it doesn't really keep you safe, but did you kind of put yourself into a space which was more comfortable, that creates a space that leads you to the same types of relationship outcomes? So what we have a tendency to do is chase the same types of spaces that would have got us the results that we had as children. So for instance, my attraction style was, I never really felt good enough within myself. So the relationships that I had as a child always made me feel, no matter how hard I tried, no matter what I did, I was always felt like at the end of it that I wasn't good enough because I didn't receive the positivity that I needed in order to make me feel good. So what I ever did didn't really work. That led me to believe that I wasn't good enough. And so when I went out into the world of relationships, I had a tendency to choose relationships where the ending was, I'm never good enough. So I would choose people that had problems or issues, couldn't really make themselves happy, and I would try and make them happy in that space. Because they're not happy within themselves, they would never really be happy. And then I would see that as a failure on my part, because I was never able to kind of make my parents happy or to give me the love and affection that I really wanted. So my end result was I always felt like I'd failed, that I wasn't good enough because I wasn't able to make this person happy. And so my attraction style was I would look for people that would end in that result. And something for us to be kind of aware of is, what are we doing that leads to a similar result that we might have experienced when we were kids?
Would you agree with me if I would say that this has also to do with self-love a lot? Because this is what's coming up for me, how you treat yourself, and then you essentially keep looking for that missing piece. Is that correct?
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm going to touch on that as well, as the kind of final part of these kind of 6 pieces. But yeah, I mean, if it's the relation, yeah, if you've got my relationship myself was massively unhealthy because I didn't see myself as good enough.
Right.
And I needed to prove that to myself, but I needed someone else to prove it to me. So within the relationship context, I needed to be with somebody who could prove to me that I wasn't good enough. So I would always choose people that had enough issues of their own that they were never really going to be able to commit or connect in a relationship in a healthy way. And neither was I, because it wasn't natural for me to connect and commit in a healthy way either. And so that would play out between the two of us. They would end up at the end of it, I would feel like rubbish because no matter what I did, I never felt I was good enough for them. And so I would kind of, so that was my attraction style. I was always attracted to people that would lead me to feel that I was never good enough. And then at the end of it, I could say, see, I'm not good enough. This never works for me. I'm always going to be unhappy. And that was the end result. My subconscious was always looking to reestablish for me.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that you don't want to stay in that state. You want to make it better, but subconsciously you're looking for what you've been taught, what you know, what you saw.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting concept to me that you were almost on a mission. Your brain was looking for these people that you could
Yeah.
help them solve something, but in the end, you needed that reassurance that you're still not good enough.
Yeah, all the time. And their attraction style mostly was that they were looking for someone to try and help them
Mm-hmm.
that would then let them down. Because that's how generally how people would feel. Because eventually I would then go, okay, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I'm not making any difference. I would then start to become a little bit resentful. I would then start to shut down because of my avoidant attachment style, which I'm going to talk about in a little while. And I'd start to remove myself from the situation. So therefore, then they would always say that I was the one that let them down.
Mm-hmm.
And on the whole, if I think about what the relationships were that I had, in the end, it was generally that they would feel like I'd let them down. So on the whole, I would say I was looking for people to make me feel like I wasn't good enough, and they were looking for people to make them feel that they were going to be let down, that can't be trusted, that
Right.
we're never going to be there for them.
Right, John, there is something that we've discussed in the last episodes and with another coach, dating coach, and we tapped on a drama triangle. If you were to put yourself into the drama triangle and the partner, would you say that you are the victim and they are the rescuer, or
No, I was the rescuer,
you were the rescuer? Okay.
and they were the victim, for want of a better word,
Okay.
because I was always trying to make them feel better.
I see.
But I was actually trying to rescue myself. I was trying to
Right.
create a relationship for myself which was going to be healthy, but I didn't know how to do that. Nothing healthy really felt familiar to me. So
Right. Yeah.
no matter how good it was, and even again, I'll talk about this as a little bit as well, because it's another part of the 6 bit
Sorry,
thing.
I'm totally
Yes, okay.
over to
No,
the
that's okay.
next
Yeah,
point, and I don't know what they are, so I apologize.
that's fine, no problem. It's because it all does bleed into one, really. It's a big picture. So
Mhm.
yeah, these conversations do generally lead from kind of one bit to the next bit to the next bit, and they're all intertwined. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's no need for you to apologize. It's just the way that all this stuff works. It's there's lots of interlinking with the other things that we do.
Right. So now, so point number one would be to, so it's the attraction style that you have.
Yeah, so understand what it is that you are attracted to somebody for. What is it you're trying to get from that? Are you attracted to someone who's got a lot of problems? Are you attracted to someone that does need saving? Are you attracted to someone that's closed off and
Right.
difficult to read or to difficult to be with? And again, if you're trying to recreate that within yourself by choosing those types of people.
Right. Awesome. So are we ready for step two?
Yeah, so I've already mentioned my avoidant attachment style. So attachment style is key in relationships. Um, so they fall into two categories: they're secure and insecure attachment. Attachment theory is something that's been around since the 1950s, and what it proposes is that when we are first born, we have a need to feel safe, secure, and loved. Otherwise, we struggle to form a secure attachment with our caregivers. So, if we receive love, affection, uh, encouragement, support, that we know that person is there, it makes us feel secure. When we struggle, they're there for us to help us. We generally grow up with what's called a secure attachment style. So then we have secure relationships as adults because we trust relationships, we believe in relationships, we choose the right type of people to have relationships with. And when we struggle, we know how to look after ourselves, because when we looked after properly as by our parents, they sort of teach us how to soothe properly, to kind of make sure we're okay within ourselves, and then we're able to do that for ourselves as adults, with maybe a little bit of assistance from the people that we're in relationships with at the same time. If we don't receive that, then we generally will grow up with what's called an insecure attachment style. I've already mentioned my one being an avoidant, and there are two types of avoidant attachment, and there's a fearful and a dismissive type. So I was a fearful avoidant, and I like to call myself an avoidant in recovery now, because even though I've done a lot of work on myself, there are still the occasional triggers that will send me into a defensive space where I want to back off from people. And a fearful avoidant is someone who really wants to be in a relationship, is chasing a relationship, wants to feel the connection, wants to feel the love, but they reach a certain point of connection and they start to shut down and back off because it becomes unsafe for them to continue.
Mm-hmm.
So their brain says, this is as far as we go here.
Right.
And they start to shut down.
So they reach a threshold and they can't get past the threshold because there's something like some past trauma associated with that. So they just like withdraw.
Some past hurt, some past pain, loss that they're not managed well, but their brain has put a protective kind of space in for them. So as soon as they reach an uncomfortable level, their brain goes, actually, if we go too far here, could hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we need to stop, or we need to back off.
Right.
That then obviously leads to lots of difficulties in relationships, because generally a fearful avoidant is pretty full on at the beginning of a relationship because they want to be there. So they'll attract someone in, generally is the style I'm going to talk about in a second. And then that causes a lot of dynamics because it creates an insecurity and unsure space for the other person that they're with, because they've all of a sudden decided they're not going to be as connected and committed and in this relationship as they were previously. That's why some people can just switch overnight. And I was one of those people. My defenses were so strong at one point that I would think I was in love one day and want to run away from the relationship the next, because I couldn't manage this healthy, happy, contented space. Right. And so my brain would go, this is too uncomfortable now, and it would just switch off a lot of times. Sometimes just my emotions would switch off overnight, and the next day I just thought, I don't want to be here anymore.
Right. So not only is it confusing for you, but also the other person, because one day you're all, butterflies and daisies, and the next one you're packing your suitcase and saying bye.
Exactly. This is where ghosting type behavior can come in as well. So if you've ever been love bombed by someone and then ghosted by someone, generally they've probably got a fearful avoidant style, because they'll be full on at the start, and then when they reach that shut off point, they'll start ghosting you. So they'll start ignoring your text messages, whatever. They'll become less frequent with their responses, less keen to see you and spend time. So yeah, that's if that's happened, you've probably been in a relationship with someone with a fearful avoidance style attachment.
Right.
The second type is
sorry. No, just a thought coming up for me, or more like a question to you. Do these people do it consciously? Are they aware of it when they're doing it? And are they seeing that it's maybe a pattern there and it's probably not healthy for them?
On the whole, no.
Yeah, or is it like subconscious, like they're not even aware that that is happening?
No, most of the time they're not. Most of the time they know it's happening, but they don't know why it's happening. They're not consciously aware enough to go, okay, this is a problem. Why do I keep doing this? It took me until I was about 40, early 40s, before I sat down and thought, what am I doing here? What is this about? So it took me 40 years to kind of sit down, even though I'd had therapy, I'd had coaching. I didn't know what was going on at the time, but it was when I sat at one of the relationships came to an end, and I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. And I started to own, I thought, what am I doing? Because I was always blaming everybody else. I'm not good enough. You make me feel like I'm not good enough. You've done something which then wants me to switch off. And I wasn't very aware of the fact, actually, no, it's not them, it's me. I'm just doing this for no reason sometimes. And it took me a while to kind of sit back and go, okay, what is that about for me? And to understand what that was. And again, to consciously now become aware of what you do. And if you keep doing it when you're consciously aware of the fact that you're doing it, that's generally more manipulative type behavior, more narcissistic type behavior.
True.
Because we're breaking topic slightly, but a narcissist, depending on what type of narcissist it is, but a narcissist will give you everything and then remove it, give you everything and then remove it, give you everything and then remove it, in order to make you dependent on them.
Right, because they need it. Right.
because they need you to be in a certain space with them so that they feel safe and secure, in
Yeah.
charge, in control,
Mm-hmm.
able to dictate to you, call the shots, kind of classic narcissistic type behavior. And they will generally be really nice to you to get you to buy into them. And then they'll start to show you these negative traits.
Mm-hmm.
If you then start to back off, they'll start being really nice to you again to get you to come back in.
I see.
And then they'll start to show you their real traits. And then they'll try to drag you back in again. And that cycle is generally what drags people into a narcissistic relationship. It's that kind of trauma bonding. It's that ups and downs of a relationship. A secure person generally won't do that. So a secure attachment style, they won't entertain someone treating them that way. They'll go, no, what do you think you're doing? See you
Right.
later. They
Yeah.
might give you the benefit of the doubt once, but they won't hang around. Whereas
Right.
someone with an unhealthy attachment, especially if they're generally an anxious type attachment,
Mm-hmm.
which is the other type I'm going to talk about in a sec, they have a tendency to go with that in the same way that they would go for a fearful avoidant, because a fearful avoidant draws them in and then tries to kick them back out again. But an anxious attachment style person will want to chase at that point. Let me just tell you about dismissive avoidant quite quickly. Dismissive avoidant is a person that just doesn't want a relationship really at all. They do a lot of surface relationships, a lot of friends with benefits, a lot of situationships. They don't really want to be involved with people because their brain is saying it's too painful, it's too difficult to even contemplate the idea of being close to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm not going to go there.
So they're not even going to let them in on any level.
Only if they do, it'll be very, very brief.
Mm-hmm.
Very brief. It won't be like a fearful that needs time to develop the sense of running away. It's dismissive will just go, oh, actually, no way, I'm not doing this.
I see.
And they'll pretty much shut down before they've even gone anywhere.
Yeah. And only asking, and thank you for sharing your intimate, memories and experiences, because I do talk to a lot of moms, and
Yeah.
these things in a relationship, especially when it's a mom to be, these things can come up. And so yeah, just for them to know, if they're watching, that it's okay not to know, that it's okay not to realize it, but to watch maybe for it, maybe to start noticing.
And they're really going to be the key to whether their child grows up with a healthy attachment or not.
Exactly.
The parents or the primary caregivers, but generally the parents are the people that the child needs to bond with in a healthy, secure way. So if you recognize any of this behavior maybe in yourself, it's probably a good idea to get it looked at before you have a child. Or if you've got a child, is to get it looked at now and to do some work on yourself, because otherwise you could pass on
Yes.
an attachment style that's unhealthy to your child if you don't look at your own stuff. For instance, for my parents, one was an anxious attachment and one was an avoidant attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of grew up not knowing where I stood with either of them. So an anxious type person, it was generally a child that was left to scream and cry, would scream and cry, become very clingy as a child to try and get their needs met. They could have been received well. They could have then been held, but they then learned that kicking off a little bit
Mm-hmm.
would get the attention they required. Or in a lot of cases, they weren't fed. They weren't given the right kind of conditions, even no matter how much they screamed and cried. I had a client once who used to be tied in, sort of buckled into her buggy when she cried and screamed and just left.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't that grow into avoidant in later stages, where the child just sort of withdraws into himself, knowing that no matter how much they'll scream, nothing's gonna happen, so they'll just like suppress it and just be quiet?
Yeah, that would take them into an avoidance style. But if they then keep that going, they still have the need to act out or to reach out all the time, that would turn into an anxious style.
I see.
So an anxious adult will be the people that might like a bit of chaos, a bit of drama in their lives. They might kick off for no reason. They might find it difficult with obviously rejection and abandonment type issues. But they'll express that. They'll become very clingy, very needy. They'll chase the person that's sort of creating, and they're quite more common in sort of codependent relationships. And as I said, they're more common in the relationships with narcissists and those types of personality traits. because they get sucked in
Right.
and then they chase, because to make themselves feel secure again, they need to receive something from the other person. And if that comes, they go, oh, that's good, I'm better now. But the other person will then keep triggering them, and they'll keep chasing, and they'll keep chasing, until finally maybe sometimes they've had enough. But it's generally takes them quite a while to realize this is going to be a destructive relationship for them, even if they don't actually necessarily sometimes want to be with a person either.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to say. It's very tricky to look for something that you've never seen. You don't know how it's supposed to look like. So then it's really easy for narcissists to lure you in and use you as their prey, because they need something as well. And you're too fragile. You're not stable enough in this specific thing that you're easy to be manipulated.
And again, a lot of this is most of this is subconscious, and it's a kind of energy you give on. This is why narcissists choose particular types of people, because even though you might appear to be confident and self-assured, they have a kind of a vulnerability radar.
They do. They really do. They smell it. They just smell it out of you. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And then they'll start to knock away your self-confidence and your assurance, and until they've got you into a space where you are pliable, and they are able to treat you and do what they want.
Thank you for explaining.
And then the fourth type, or the other type, is called a disorganized style of attachment, which is called an anxious avoidant. That generally will be a narcissistic personality disorder, and will come from that kind of space, because they're generally from trauma in childhood. So either they've witnessed severe abuse of some kind, or they've been abused themselves in some way. So they feel very unsafe around it in relationships, because the people that they looked for security and love and affection as a child was the person that also caused a huge amount of pain. So when they start to then develop relationships with people when they get older, they become very disorganized. I don't know how to feel about this, because the person that I loved as a child, the person I was looking to make me feel good about myself and make me feel safe, is also the person that abused my parent. They're also the person that maybe beat me, perhaps. So then when they get close to people as adults, they're like, oh, I can't be close to this person, because I don't know what's going to happen. They could be the person that then abuses me.
Are these people more prone to abuse on their own in relationships?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But they are more likely to be the people that could have something like borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, codependency disorders, and things like that, because they are so fragile. And even though a narcissist may seem very confident, they're very fragile under the surface.
Right. Okay.
The next is our beliefs, our relationship beliefs. So we all carry beliefs about everything. And beliefs are probably the most powerful thing we carry, because they're our truths. And a belief is something that can overpower our need to survive, because what we believe might be the case will then maybe end up us committing suicide, because we believe there's no other option. There's other obviously factors involved, but so a belief is something that obviously we develop as kids. So do we believe that relationships are unreliable? Love is temporary? I never get my needs met? Is it something just as simple as all the good people are gone, I'm never going to find the person I want? Again, we're going to play out those stories in our head all the time, and we're going to be looking to make those beliefs our reality, because they are our truths. So understanding what you actually believe about relationships is very important, because again, you're subconsciously going to strive to make that your truth, your reality all of the time. So if it's an unhealthy belief that you carry about relationships, you're going to then have a tendency to create unhealthy relationships, because that fulfills your belief.
Right. And it's supported by the attachment relationship.
Yeah, again,
right?
all of this is very entwined. Again, so if you go back to your attraction style, you have a belief within your attraction style that you're not good enough. That's a belief about yourself. Not necessarily a relationship belief, but that's a belief about you, and you're following the pattern in order to make your belief your reality all the time. So understanding what beliefs you carry about relationships, whether you think they're a waste of time. As one of my clients said, I've never seen a healthy relationship, so how do I even know they exist? I don't know they exist, so I keep recreating unhealthy relationships. And we're obviously working on that to show them that they don't need to keep doing that, and they can create a healthy relationship if they work on their innermost stuff. And that kind of forms our relational patterns, which is the next part. So if you think about the relationships you've had in the past, do you notice a similarity with the people that you're choosing, the outcomes that you kind of come to, sort of same types of people? We have a tendency to form patterns again based a lot on our stuff that we develop in childhood, and then if we keep choosing similar people to fulfill a certain need, we have a tendency to cycle through the same types of patterns of relationships all the time with very similar outcomes, similar problems.
Yes.
And so therefore, noticing what your pattern is so we can start to break what your pattern might be is really important when it comes to kind of creating that relationship that you're looking for. We all have behavioral patterns in all areas of our lives. We do similar things with everything that we do, because our brain likes repetitive stuff. It likes familiarity. It doesn't really like change very much. We're not hugely designed to be risk takers as humans. Slightly, there are other people that have got a slightly differently wired brain, which means they're more likely to take chances than others. But on the whole, your brain likes familiarity and sameness, and it will generally choose the easy option. Easy being the operative word. It's not really an easy option. It can be a really hard option that it chooses, but it's familiar, so it's the path of least resistance.
And I think that the trickiest part about beliefs is that even if it's a toxic belief, your brain will always try to find evidence to support it, no matter whether it's rational or absolutely irrational, which it's usually irrational.
Yeah.
Like you said with the suicide, there are other options, but you can't see it in that time and space, and your brain just keeps coming up with more supporting evidence why to do it rather than not to. So
yeah, the same. Why don't we walk away from relationships when they're really painful? Because we're creating the same pattern, the same belief over and over again that our brain believes in. This is how relationships are.
Yeah.
This is how I need to feel. This is what's right for me, and it doesn't know how to break away from that until you consciously take a step back and go, oh, okay,
Right.
I don't really need to do this, do I? I can do something else. I just need to shift from this space to this space. And I mentioned resistance at the end there, the path of least resistance. Resistance is then the next part of what understanding, because I've had so many people that I've worked with, and even within myself, that I'll get to a certain point and then my brain says, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too difficult. This is too unfamiliar. And it tries to return us back to what it knows how to do. I've got a video on my YouTube channel called The Bicycle Effect, and it talks about why we do what we do, why we feel what we feel, why we think what we think. And it's the part of the bike is called it's your brakes. It's so when you're moving things forward and you're trying to change things, and your brain says, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And it puts the brakes on. And then it stops you from moving forward in the direction that you want to, because it wants to take you back to what you've always done, because that's where it feels at home. So we really need to be aware what our resistance might be to allowing ourselves to change any of this stuff anyway, because we're just going to be becoming really uncomfortable with certain things.
Right.
It's just being very aware of what might hold us back, why we might self-sabotage, why we might self-destruct, and that would be resistance. That's resistance to change kicking in.
And fear as well. Fear is such a strong emotion. It's very potent, and it can be, again, irrational, but it can hold us back more than we would like it to. And our brain doesn't like it. Our brain doesn't like being fearful. So we try to get away from it, even though some fear is necessary because our body is just trying to tell us something. And sometimes it's okay to overcome it or work with it even better to use it to our benefit. But I agree, it's very hard, and you just quickly go down into a rabbit hole, and someone needs to pull you out, literally.
Yeah, fear can be very debilitating. You know, it's like you said, your brain is telling you there's something you're not right, that's not right.
Yeah,
Now, 99.9% of the time, it's not something you need to be fearful of, because
exactly.
there's very few things in this world that it's there as a protective mechanism, because there were lots of things to be frightened of when we first developed as human beings. So we didn't know if there was going to be a tiger in the bushes next time we went around the corner.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we needed to be ready to be fearful, and then again act and go into fight or flight, in order to do what we need to do when the fear was real. Unfortunately, and the society that we live in nowadays, we've still got that part of our brain, but fear, there's nothing really out, unless we're going to get hit by a bus or, be scared, right? Get out of the way.
If it
But
happens right away, you might not even notice.
no,
So,
it's okay to be scared, to be fearful sometimes. I mean, I did a tandem skydive many years ago. I've never been so scared in my entire life. But I was jumping out of a plane. It's okay to be scared at that point, because I'm 12,000 feet up in the air or wherever it was, and I've never done it before. So it's okay to be scared at that point. It's okay, but that's hardly ever going to be the case. So it's just about, okay, it's false evidence appearing real means fear most of the time. So we just need to go, okay, there's no reason for me to be scared. Yes, I could get hurt. Yes, relationships can be painful, but I'm going to be all right. I've always been all right. I've always come out the other side. It's okay that my brain is trying to warn me that this could be a painful experience if it doesn't work out. But actually, I just need to reassure myself that regardless of what happens in the relationship, I am going to be okay, because I've got myself in order to get me out of any jams.
we're going on to 4, 5,
6.
6.
So 6, we did attraction style, attachment style, relationship beliefs, relational patterns, resistance, and then going on to number 6.
Awesome.
There is a number 7, which is my sneaky number 7.
Oh, that's the sneaky one. Okay, because I said 6 ways
There
to
are 6.
live. So yeah,
There
cool.
are
I'm
6.
very excited. I'm very excited.
I throw a sneaky 7 in at the end,
Cool.
just to underpin all of the stuff. Right. So yeah. So the next bit is, what do you want from a relationship, and what do you want to give to a relationship? So if we have fears about connecting with someone at a deeper level, we can stop ourselves actually giving of ourselves to a relationship. And on the whole, if we don't give of ourselves, we can't expect someone else to give of themselves either. So to overcome the fear, to overcome the blocks, to overcome any avoidance or difficulties we might have with actually really connecting to someone, is to start creating an idea of how comfortable we're going to be being vulnerable. I would like to give of myself to a relationship in order to receive, to be in a relationship which is healthy and happy and fulfilling for me. But I need to be able to be comfortable with giving to that relationship in order to be able to receive the same type of thing. Because if I go in closed off, I'm very unlikely to attract the right person anyway. But I'm probably going to attract a person who's attracted to my closed offness, or is going to eventually get fed up with me being closed off, and they're never going to be really, no matter how open they can be, if they're not chipping away at what you're holding back, if they're not getting their needs met, eventually the relationship is likely to take a bit of a turn or just come to an end. So we need to make ourselves comfortable with the idea of being vulnerable and saying, okay, like I said before, this could hurt, this could be quite painful, but I still want to give of myself, because otherwise I'm not going to experience this relationship as fully as possible. And that just puts our mind at rest. So when our resistance kicks in, when our brain says, oh, this is getting a bit too deep for me, you can then go, yeah, but I've decided that this is what I want.
Right.
And therefore I can be confident and more concrete in that space, rather than going, oh yeah, oh, scary, and running away. I say, actually, no, this is what I've decided, what I want. And I need just to get myself ready to be able to attack that kind of space when and if it comes. And what we want from a relationship. So the kind of the fundamentals, to be have the same values, ideals, where we want relationships to go, what kind of things do we think about for our future, do our personalities match, do we have similarities but also our own interests and that kind of stuff. So the kind of fundamental things that will make a relationship a success. There's a part of your brain called your reticular activating system, or your RAS, and that is your I'm going to go and find what you want part of your brain. It's got where you selectively filter out information that you don't need. So if I start to focus on the things I want in a relationship, my brain is then switched on to finding those things for me. So even subconsciously, if someone comes my way and they meet my list of things that I'm looking for, my brain will go, oh, that person looks like a likely candidate for these parts of things. Let's kind of strike up a conversation with them, or let's get to know them a bit better. And that's why we don't think about what we don't want, because that same thing will happen if we ever don't want this. Most of my clients I've worked with will always have a list of the things they don't want in their next relationship, because mostly they've had not very good relationships.
Right.
But they've not thought about what they do want, sometimes because they've got kind of people-pleasing tendencies. So they think about others before themselves, and it seems like a bit arrogant, or they get feelings of even of guilt thinking about what they want for themselves. But it's really important, if you want to bring the right type of person towards you, that you prioritize yourself and say, okay, this is the kind of person I want to be with. And therefore, we switch on that part of our brain. When we start to meet people, start bringing people towards us, they are more than likely going to fit more into the style of the kind of person we want to be with, the type of person we want to be with, than the person we don't. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have a want list, and because we want to be able to bring those people towards us. And that's why we have a give list. So when they arrive, we are comfortable with the idea of saying, okay, if this goes somewhere, I'm ready to kind of engage with it a bit and see where it does go.
And to be fair, I find it myself that it's easier knowing what I don't want, because it's easier for the brain, because I actually have to think about it, what I want. I have to tap into my inner self, into the deeper layers of myself, and think about it. And that might not always be pleasant. It might sometimes even be hurtful to a point. So I think, yeah, to have a list of the wants instead of I don't want this is definitely harder, because you learn a lot about yourself as well on the way.
Yeah, and your brain's negatively biased, so it needs to remember the negatives. Everything that we do, we feel negatively, has a much more impact, because our brain says, I need to remember that for next time because it hurt.
Right.
Whereas if I remember the good times, my brain will go, oh yeah, that was nice, but it doesn't need to hold on to that information. It's just a recollection. You go, yeah, that was a really good time, but those things have less impact on us. And so, like you said, it's really much easier for us to go, oh, I don't want that, because that was horrible. But then focusing on that then brings it towards us. Right. And like you said as well, if I think about what I want, I need to think about my own values. I need to think about my own principles. I need to really kind of look at myself and go, what is important to me? And self-reflection can, like you said, be an uncomfortable and difficult space sometimes to go into, because we're not brought up to do that. We're brought up to look at the outside world, and everything's external. How are my parents feeling? And sometimes your parents can even go, you make me feel angry, you make me feel sad, you make me do this. And they blame us for their own behavior. And so therefore, again, it becomes external. We all kind of value ourselves or validate ourselves externally rather than internally. And as a good parent, we want to instill that in ourselves, but we want to instill that in our children and stuff, actually, that you need to validate yourself. I can't be responsible for you all the time. Right. I can't be responsible how you feel all the time, although I'd love to, as your parent, to be able to make you feel better every single day. I can't always do that, because I might be having a bad day, or it's out of my control, or it's got nothing to do with me, and I can't make you do that. And if you keep relying on external things to make you feel better, you don't know how to manage it yourself.
And I think this is, sorry to jump in, I just wanted to say, I think this is very crucial for new mothers, especially, that might feel isolated, especially in the first couple months, and sort of blaming themselves for things that are out of their control. I think being aware is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, some things are just out of our control, and it's okay to admit that, and not to rely on the external at all times, because what we see our world around us is really just what's inside of us. It's a projection almost.
Yeah, we don't see the world outside. We only see the world from the inside. So the world outside is what we see from our own inside. And everybody will see it completely differently.
Yes.
And it's really important that, again, you know what that means to you. Is, okay, are my opinions of this thing warped? Did they make sense? Am I blaming myself, like you said, blaming myself for something I don't need to blame myself for? Am I showing myself forgiveness and self-compassion and self-love? They're not questions that we generally ask ourselves. And we look for external sources to make us feel better. Drink, drugs, relationships, whatever it might be, buying things. They're all external ways of making ourselves feel good. But actually, we need to look in the mirror sometimes. And like you said, that can be quite a difficult thing to do. But we really need to be able to understand ourselves. And this is the final part. It's fine. There are 6 parts to the program, but I have a sneaky number 7, which kind of ties all this together. And that is the relationship you have with yourself. Because if you don't understand your relationship with yourself, if you haven't got a very good relationship with yourself, then none of this stuff will necessarily change anyway. So the first thing we really need to work on, or the thing we need to work on alongside these other things and understanding the other things, is actually, how do I see me? What kind of relationship? Do I like myself? Do I show myself love and compassion? Now, what is my self-talk like? Do I put myself down a lot? Do I berate myself? Do I make myself feel guilty for no reason? Do I put other people's feelings before my own? Again, it's really difficult to change what we do if there's parts of us that don't allow that to happen. So if you don't know what kind of relationship, or if you've got an unhealthy relationship with yourself, that will dictate every kind of relationship that you have in your life.
Absolutely.
Because it will mirror it. So sneaky part number 7 is the self-development stuff. This is all self-development, but this is kind of, okay, this is the relationship that I want with other people. What relationship do I have with myself in order to ensure that I can have that relationship with others that I'm looking for? And like that's can be the most difficult thing to look at. That's when resistance can be really powerful, because we are fundamentally changing how we are with us, and we are with us 24/7. So it's really significant that we have a healthy relationship with who we are.
And sometimes we can be very demanding in terms of to ourselves and shut it out. So yes, absolutely. This has been so enriching, so enlightening. I thank you for sharing your insights, especially your insights and your intimate experiences, and just being so open. So, but John, I have a question. So, if the resistance is so big, is so dominant, can people do it on their own, or would you recommend, as a therapist, as a coach, to just seek out help, because it shortens the time span to get from A to B?
Yeah, I think I was at a Tony Robbins thing a few years ago, and he said something along the lines of, find an expert if you want to be good at something. If you want to overcome your block, go and find someone who's done it. There's always going to be this sense of individuality, so our things are not going to be exactly the same as someone else's. But I've been working on this stuff for 18 years. So if I can help you with my 18 years of experience to do this in 6 months, whereas it's taken me 18 years, what's your choice?
Don't make the mistakes I made, because
yeah, I've had to learn my way through this. I've had to study my way through this. I've had to experience my way through this. Yes, we will still have to do that anyway. But like I said, if it's taken me 18 years to get to this point, and I can say, okay, let's cut your journey into 3 months or 6 months or whatever, let's do that. Or
and
you
that doesn't mean that you're leaving out important milestones as you go.
No, again, it depends how deep this stuff runs, whether you're going to be able to do it yourself or not. I mean, if you've got an awful relationship yourself and I sell you an online program, this is how you improve your life, you're not going to improve your life, because you're going to do the program, you're going to feel maybe great for 5 minutes when the program's finished, and then you're going to go, yeah, I'm not really worth this. So you're going to stop. So having a coach, more a coach than a therapist, to hold you accountable for what you're going through, because a coach is generally there as like an accountability partner as well as anything else, to hold your hand and sort of say, okay, what's going on, what can we do about this? Therapy, not necessarily the same. It's more bring this stuff to the session and we'll talk it through. It might then give you the clarity that you need in order to move on, but then maybe a coach might say, okay, well, go away and try that, go away and try this, come back and tell me all about it, and then we'll see where this didn't work perhaps. And I might give you a kick up the backside if you need one, if you haven't done the things that we talked about that you need to do. A therapist generally won't do that.
And sometimes that's exactly what we need.
Yeah, a little nudge in the right direction. I'll just remind you that this is what we agreed on. Therapists don't have a tendency to do that because it's all about finding your own answers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Same with coaching. It's about finding your own answers, but having someone to say, okay, but we could find the answers a bit quicker if we did this.
Yeah. Awesome. John, this brings me to my next question. Where can people find you and benefit from your amazing experiences and life hacks?
So if you want to reach out for a chat, find out a little bit more about what I do, just go to www.johnkennycoaching.com. All the relationship kind of stuff that I do is on there. And just drop us a line on the contact page there. Give us a call, phone numbers on there, send me a text, whatever, and I'll be happy to have a chat and talk with you to see what it is that you need some help with, and whether working together is a good idea.
Awesome. And you also have your own podcast, so people can just check out some episodes and see if it's for them, if it resonates with them.
Yeah. So the Relationship Guy podcast. So yeah, it's on all major platforms. So do seek me out. I have a kind of I've had some great guests, including yourself, on there. But I also do what's called a relationship rambling. So I'll pick a topic. I'm actually doing a bit about narcissism at the moment. Actually, I've got a little series of by the time this goes out, I guess it would have already be there in the world for you to listen to. I've done a little series. I'm doing 3 kind of podcasts on narcissism because it's such a big topic. So yeah, do tune in. And if you want to reach out via the podcast, there's always contact details on there too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John, for sharing everything with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Much smarter. And as with every episode, we've come to an end with this one. I really hope you liked my conversation with John on 6 ways to create a healthy relationship. Personally, number 6 completely blew my mind, and I hope you had your own aha moments. If you did, please let me know in the comment section. If you're a relationship coach just like John is, or you're a mama and you want to share your story with me and the rest of the world, or you know of someone who wants to share their story, please let me know either via Instagram, where I can be found under my name, Doula Viviane, or via my email address, which is birthwithviviane@gmail.com. And that is it from me for now. I will see you next time. Stay tuned for another episode.